Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday, the first real Football Friday. Johnny Mac of the 2024 NFL season. Good to be here with you, John McMullen. Good to be here with all of our viewers, all of our listeners on the podcast, wherever you're consuming the content. We appreciate you for consuming it. Make sure you drop a like, show your support of the channel and of the show. We appreciate that. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Friday morning, man?
Doing well, yeah. First respite, Eagles having a walkthrough today, so they will be at work, but no reporters in for walkthroughs. So first little breather, not a full practice today, and then they'll be back at it tomorrow morning, where Kellen Moore will speak for the first time. So I put a moratorium on motion. There's probably going to be a crap load of motion questions on Saturday morning, so we can leave it to then.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But yeah, Kellen Moore, he'll get his first shot at 9:40 in the morning, Saturday morning.
That'll be just the second time we'll hear from Kellen, right? You guys had one presser with him already.
Yeah. Second, we talked to him in the spring. It's sort of the introductory, which was way too late, but I digress. And
Eagles do not care, man. They are just
they do not care. Same thing with Vic. I mean, Vic, as you saw yesterday, Vic's a former head coach in this league. He has no problem dealing with press, although, maybe the Eagles see some problems because he's a little bit too honest. But and Kellen's the same way. He's been doing this, not been a head coach, but he's been a coordinator for a long time now. So yeah, I don't know why they take so long, but probably because they can. That's why.
Yeah, I think if they look at some of the stuff that comes out of the pressers and they're like, let's avoid them at all costs for as long as we can and for as much as we can. And that's what they do. But Johnny Mac, we got a good show planned today. We'll have Paul Domowitch, Hall of Fame selector, going to be covering the Eagles for a long time. We'll get his perspective on what he's seen come out of camp for the first couple of days. And then in hour number 2, Ed Kratz, who's been down there at training camp, obviously, with you for the first 2 days. So good stuff. We'll get ready to talk to Ed in hour number 2. So good show planned. John, I want to get your general feel, your general consensus 2 days in. We talked about all this stuff all off season long, the wide receiver 3, the position battles, the linebackers, the cornerbacks, you name it. We talked about it all off season long. How you feeling, Johnny Mac, after the first 2 days? What have you seen from this team that has stood out to you after 2 days of practice? I know it's not much, but some things have to have changed a little bit. What is it, and what have you seen?
Well, I think what has changed is you see what's really competition, and what's really competition is cornerback, linebacker, off-ball linebacker. We don't know yet with right guard because of the injuries. Landon's been out with the lacerated toe. He's back limited, but he hasn't worked in team drills. So that kind of has a domino effect. It affects Mekhi Becton. Instead of being on the second team, he's the first team left guard. It affects Matt Hennessy, who would be potentially involved in some competition as well because he's now the backup center. He had been the backup right guard back in the spring. So you have a little bit of a domino effect, and we'll get a better indication if that's going to be more of a real competition when Landon gets back into practice and everything falls back into place. And even Brett Toth, who's been the backup center as well, he's been out with a hamstring issue. And that has affected that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say it's not going to be a competition, but we certainly haven't seen it yet. It's been all Tyler Steen. And I think ultimately we'll get a better feel for Tyler Steen when the pads come on, as people have been talking pretty consistently with that. And he's going to have some difficult times, certainly with Jalen Carter opposite him. So there's going to be some hiccups and ups and downs, and we'll see if that competition develops. I've talked about tight end, the backup tight end or starting tight end if you're going to use 12 personnel.
Right.
The second tight end spot has been not a competition. It's been all Grant Calcaterra. That, I wrote about that on Sports Illustrated. That might have been
Yeah,
my
which
biggest
is
surprise.
significant because coming into camp, we were leaning CJ Uzama on that
Yeah,
position.
yeah. For a number of reasons. One, he's a veteran player. He's played at a high level. He's played deep into the playoffs with Cincinnati. He's been successful. But he's coming off an injury, and he's older. I also like the fit because if CJ's your second tight end, then you could play him. He's a big guy. He's a better blocker than receiver, but he's a competent receiver, and that means you can play Dallas Goedert more as a flex receiver, which I think is a positive. And then all of a sudden, if you can play Dallas Goedert as a flex receiver, you have a less of a need to find that third receiver and all these things. And now with Grant, it's the opposite. You almost have to play Dallas Goedert's in line more because Dallas is a good blocker. Grant is not known for that. And then it becomes, are you tipping off, other teams? Do you get too predictable? That was a big word last year with your tendencies because what's going to be done when a certain grouping is on the field. You have to be very careful and cognizant of that. And they want, Grant to be a better blocker, and we'll see if he can handle it. But right now, it's his job to lose. So that's kind
You
of the
think that's a little bit of Kellen Moore effect, John, just because, Kellen likes to spread the ball around. Maybe he prefers to have a guy that can, is more able to make
maybe.
catch or make run routes or whatever he might have him do. And, Kellen can get creative with those guys. Do you think that's part of why they're using Grant Calcaterra?
Maybe, but Nick's loved him before Kellen's ever gotten here. Nick constantly talks about him. So I think it's maybe a combination of both. And he's had 9 receptions over his first 2 seasons. So there wasn't a lot of clearly Nick likes what he does behind the scenes, practice walkthroughs, things like that. Because it hasn't really shown up on game day, but I think it's a combination of both guys, but Kellen does have a history of using tight ends well, certainly in Dallas, and multiple tight ends well. Wide receiver 3, Paris Campbell, I thought had a really good first day, and all of a sudden, they want to look at John Ross a little bit more. So that seems to be a legitimate competition. And there's good and bad to that. One, you don't want to just hand things to Paris Campbell, but I would have also liked to have seen, well, can he be consistent? He had a good day. Can he have another good day? It's a little bit limited if you're not out there with the starting quarterback and you're getting more reps with Kenny Pickett. So there's good and bad to these competitions. And it's tougher to stand out when you're with the second team, obviously, than with the first team when you got all the all-stars out there. We won't call them dream team, but we'll call them all-stars.
John, how much of it do you think is, we're only 2 days in, so it's tough to really get like a feel, but how much, when you see, just for example, going back to the wide receiver 3, as we're talking about right now, do you think they're giving John Ross a fair shake just because it's early in camp and they're like, let's look at everybody? Or do you think they're honestly like, we don't know how much better Paris is? Or is it just like, let's see everybody and then we'll move into, who we think is a starter?
Well, I think it's between those 2 guys. They can, I think there was some cross fingers that Anaya Smith or Johnny Wilson could, jump up and be contributors. And hey, Buka Nakua.
Them, right?
No, not good anyway. Johnny short-armed one yesterday, and that was from Tanner McKee. So, that's third team work. And Ice is ahead. They're trying to, sort of pigeonhole him and get him some second team snaps. And he's a 5th rounder. Johnny's a 6th rounder, so that makes sense. But yeah, and everybody points to Puka like that's normal. Well, he was a 5th-round pick. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, good luck with that.
That's
So,
the exception, everybody.
yeah. So yeah, maybe it becomes more relevant, but and John Ross is enticing because of his physical skills. Same thing we've talked about with Devin White and
Yeah.
Saquon, but same reason, top 10 pick. He's got the physical gifts. Things went wrong from an injury perspective, but he's still young. And, throw the dart and see if it hits. He's certainly got the gifts to play. But it never manifested itself in Cincinnati. But I don't have a problem with them giving him a chance. I get it, especially when you don't have a proven commodity at wide receiver 3. So it's understandable why they want to look at him because of the physical traits.
Yeah, so we'll see how that position shakes out. I wouldn't rule out, the potential that Howie would go outside the organization.
Oh yeah, he pretty much said that.
Yeah.
He went all Vic for about 10 seconds and said, but I love him, but we'll be looking at that daily. So yeah, they'll be looking at it daily and seeing what jumps off the page, or if guys are not as impressive, because remember, it's about more than just being the third receiver. You also have to back up AJ and Devontae if something,
Right.
God forbid, happens to them. So that's the issue they're dealing with at that third wide receiver spot.
Yeah, so we'll see how that shakes out. I kind of like it, John. Maybe Vic Fangio is having a bigger effect on this team. You're getting a lot of honesty out of these press conferences from Jalen and from Howie and from
just
everybody.
small snippets from Howie and Nick.
Small snippets, but hey, better than no snippets, so we'll take it. As Johnny Mac mentioned at the top of the show, everybody, Eagles have a walkthrough today, so no media availability. You will not see any videos, nothing coming out of camp today. They will be back on the practice field tomorrow morning. Kellen Moore will speak tomorrow morning, so Johnny Mac will be down there for that. And we will probably do a shorter show maybe tomorrow, just a quick 30 when John's back, and just recap day 3. So that's coming up tomorrow. And then, John, what's the schedule for the rest of the weekend? Off Sunday. I know the players are off.
Yeah,
on
players
Sunday.
are off Sunday, back on the field Monday at 10 a.m. Nick will speak before practice, Tuesday practice. So back-to-back practices. Michael Clay will get his first chance crack at the podium this year on Tuesday. Then Wednesday is a walkthrough. No scheduled media availability there. And Thursday, August 1st is the open practice at Lincoln Financial Field. So fans can obviously attend that practice. I think it's about $10 that goes to the Eagles Autism Foundation, but so it's a good cause.
Yeah,
and that's nighttime practice. It begins at 6:30. And then Friday, they're off. Saturday off, and then back at it Sunday, August 4th. So, yeah, it's not like the old days. And this is a ramped up Eagles training camp.
Yeah, it's kind of like this across the league, though, right? It's not just Philly here. We're talking.
Well, the Eagles are at the low end. They are. They're like bottom. And Nick spoke about that when we talked about the snippets of honesty. He said we're always going to be at the low end.
Right. It's their organizational philosophy as it's worded. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're going way out, Sunday, August 4th, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, practice. That's your dog days of summer. Sunday, August 4th through Wednesday, August 7th. The Eagles will be on the practice field every day.
So bear with us, Birds 365 fans. We're going to have a changing schedule for the next couple of weeks, obviously, with everything going on at training camp. And, John's working very hard getting down there for NovaCare. So we appreciate his contributions, and we're going to make it happen on 2 hours a day, whether John's here for the full of it or not. But just stay tuned. We will continue to update you on our schedule. Johnny Mac, Monday, I know they have the morning practice, but just so everybody knows, we are going to do Birds 365 in the morning. I don't think you'll be there for the full thing, but we'll do Birds 365 in the morning just because I know you have something in the evening on Monday. So I hope you have a good time at that. But we cannot do a night show on Monday. So we will be here Monday morning on Birds 365. I'll probably get Johnny Mac for as much as I can, 30, 40 minutes. And then I'll bring up Jeff Kerr, our Monday guy, and I'll talk to Jeff maybe I'll keep Jeff for an hour if he's available, and we'll close out the show from there. So Monday morning, everybody, we will be back on Birds 365 in the morning. I appreciate everybody being here. Johnny Mac, anything else stand out at camp really maybe let's go defensive side. We talked a little bit about wide receiver 3 and the right guard position. Anything sticking out on defense?
Just a competition, but then they're really rotating guys and really trying to figure out the best ways forward at both outside corner and nickel. And I've said, I'm team Q, as our buddy James Carver says. So they've thrown a lot at him. He's played every position, and all of a sudden he might be involved in the slot competition. Now that Cooper DeJean has had a little bit of a setback, and he's going to be pushed back a little bit, supposed to miss about 3 weeks. So we'll see how that works with Cooper. And, very difficult test, September 6th, right off the bat, Green Bay in Brazil. Sure. Jordan Love, explosive offense. Matt LaFleur, they were really cooking at the end of last season. They got a ton of young, effective receivers, athletic guys. So it's going to be a big test and interesting. And the linebackers, they've been rotating everybody. Ben Van Sumeren has gotten first-team reps. Jeremiah Trotter got a couple first-team reps before he went down with some cramps yesterday. Very humid day, 2 back-to-back humid days. The one constant has been Devin White, so you certainly say he's probably going to be one of the two. And then I still think Nakobe Dean's the leader for that second spot, but they're giving everybody a look. And as Vic kind of showed, and Damo's going to be up. I see him popped in the green room. Damo's been aware of Vic Fangio since 1984, I think. He can correct me if I'm wrong. He's going to do what he wants. So if he thinks somebody can play, he's going to play him.
Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. Vic Fangio spoke yesterday. For anybody that missed that was refreshing to say the least. He was very honest, maybe sometimes honest to a fault in terms of how the organization might have felt about it. But it was great to hear the honesty from defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. Kellen Moore's coming up to speak tomorrow. So we will follow along and we'll keep you updated with that. Let's get to our first commercial break. As Johnny Mac mentioned, Hall of Fame selector Paul Domowitch set to join us next. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Cody K, what's up, man? Bruce Banner, Eduardo, Twiz the Jigga, Joho, Madness, Daz, Eduardo. Anybody I missed? Sorry I missed you, but we appreciate you being here. Make sure you guys drop a like on the show. Stay tuned. Birds 365 will be right back with Paul Domowitch.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.